It's our leading story for today. The number of people who have died in the fire that engulfed a building in the Johannesburg CBD in the early hours of the morning has risen to 75. Scores others have been injured and taken to hospital for treatment. President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed deep sadness at the loss of life. In a statement, he's offered his condolences to the families of the deceased while wishing the injured a speedy recovery. Ramaphosa has described this incident as a great tragedy. He also says it calls on all stakeholders to reach out to survivors to help restore their lives. The exact cause of the blaze is still subject to investigation at this stage, but it is understood that the building was abandoned with an estimated 200 occupancy rate. At the same time, distraught families and relatives continue to flock to the scene. The bodies of the deceased have been transported to Hillbrow and Diepkloof government mortuaries.
The first thing that we want to speak to is to pass our condolences to the family that has lost their loved ones. In fact, the number has now grown, has now increased to 75 of people who have passed on, with 422 people that are being displaced. And about 250 people that are injured and so on. So we want to pass our condolences to those who lost their loved one.
Well, there's been a lot of activity on the ground at the scene of the fire. SABC News reporter Hasina Gori is on the ground and sent us this report earlier.
It was like a scene from a movie. People jumping from the building, and some of the people that were rescued, the blood, you could see their skin was peeling off. And what concerned me the most was some of the guys that you could pick up that were foreign national. When we were referring them to the paramedics, they were running away. And our assumption was they probably did not have the documentation. I must really say, as South African, we need to start enforcing our laws. I mean, we've got laws that govern this country, particularly around the issue of immigration. We've got laws, bylaws. For example, this particular building, a year ago, I reported this to chiefs that people are getting marked inside the building. People are getting killed inside the building. I had a sector manager from the South African Police Service that confirmed as well that this building specifically is dangerous in this area. So the question that I posted to the local government is, because they said to us that it belongs to province and there's not much that can be done. There must be laws that we can, bypass to ensure that people don't go through what they went through. The rule of law must prevail.
On behalf of Hope SA Foundation, I'd firstly like to say heartfelt condolences to the families that have lost their loved ones and bereaved families. I am here on the scene right now, and we are providing supplies in terms of water and food supplies, and we're assessing the situation as well and waiting for the management meeting so that we know how further to best assist the families that have been affected. We know that there are shelters being supplied where people can stay the night, but many are also saying that they will be sleeping on the streets tonight. We've spoken to many South Africans as well who have lost loved ones and who cannot find their children, sisters and brothers that are unaccounted for. So it's quite tragic, and you can witness the strength of mothers who are still sitting here searching for their loved ones. And I believe in these dark days, it's a reminder of the strength and unity that South Africans have and the world has at large to come together and help people in times of disaster. So we just cry out and we say, please people, we need your support, we need your help. Help us to get through with medical supplies, food supplies, and any supplies that's needed for the people living on the streets as well.
We know that Hope SA, this is not just the only kind of interventions that you would do. Outside of this disaster, what is some of the work that is done in the inner city and around this area?
So Hope SA has quite a few projects. One of the projects is a community food drive where we feed 400 meals in Johannesburg every day. So we work in the city, we work in communities around Johannesburg. That's just one of the projects. We work with gender-based violence, and we've recently launched our mobile healthcare unit and disaster unit as well, which is currently on the scene. and from there we provide medical supplies and medical support as well.
One of the issues that came out, today is the issue of illegal housing, but also that this was actually a home that was created for gender-based violence victims, for them to find, solace and space, given that this is now what it is and has become. How do we ensure that those vulnerable women, the poor and those that are abused, get that support without finding themselves in a situation like this?
I think it comes down to legislation and also just making sure that the law is maintained. I mean, I've approached the city of Johannesburg for buildings to open as gender-based violence shelters, and I'm just hoping that will come through. But that is a project close to my heart because I've had experience as, my own experience where I grew up in a family with gender-based violence. So my heart goes out to women, children, and also men who go through gender-based violence issues. So at the end of the day, these places can exist as long as the law is maintained and there is proper channels in place to make sure that these places are places of safety.
In fact, let's go back to Hasina Gori now, who is on the scene. Hasina, of course, you've been covering this extensively since the beginning of, this morning rather. Earlier on, I spoke to Wynand Engelbrecht, and of course, he's the Chief Fire Officer for Fire Ops South Africa. And he said that he has never seen the scale of the death toll that we are currently sitting with now. 75 people confirmed to have passed on since, the fire engulfed the building. And he says this has never happened in his 50-year career. So, of course, you've also spoken to a number of people who've also been giving you various accounts. Just talk to us about what we can expect in the next couple of minutes from authorities there.
Yes, definitely that sentiment that was given to you. I heard it from the EMS's Robert Malawiti saying that in his 23 years of being first responder, he's never seen this kind of devastation taking place and this number of death tolls, taking place, and really just speaks to the scale of the tragedy that we are currently dealing with right now. And I want to bring in, one of the family members, yet again, who we found. It's been an emotional day for many of them, up from the very early hours of the morning, searching for their families, also finding out sometimes that some of them have lost their lives. I want to bring in Hassan Mohammed. Thank you so much for speaking to me. When we spoke earlier, you said that you've lost some of your family members. Can you tell me, how many of your family members did you lose, and also, what happened here?
Thank you very much, what's the name? Hina. Okay, Hazela. Thank you. Here we lost like 6 family, but the problem for this fire, so we don't know if it's now is through writing and investigating. Other one we don't know where is them. Right now, if we make a donation to send some people to run to hospital to see what's going on there, some there we find them there, some they are died already. But like as I'm talking, we lost 6 family or even 7 families. Yeah.
So can you tell me, you said you live a few blocks away from here and you were outside this house till, the late hours of the night. What happened last night?
The last night I come here, I was talking to my brother. When I speak to my brother, I wish, when I finish eating, when I finished to talk to my brother, I said, let me go to sleep. It was around past 11. So around 2, I just rest to hear. I hear the noise. When I hear the noise, then when I come outside, I just say fire outside. I am the first to come here. When I find out some people that run away. So when I ask them what's happening here, they say no. Here there is this load shedding. So after this come, it was like on and off, on and off. Someone they tried to fix it. So they went to cause a fire. Yes.
And when you got here, what was it like? What was happening here when you got here?
No, it was just smoke and fire. Because we see some people they run out, some they try to jump in the window. Yeah, that is.
And your family members, how old were they? The ones that had passed on?
Yeah, the other my family member, the one I lost there, other one is 2 years, other one is 6 months old. His mama is 32, and my brother I think is 42. Other one is 19 years. The second one 10 years. Yeah.
And just tell me, we've heard that these buildings here have like informal structures inside the rooms. What was it like living inside these buildings? What did it look like inside?
No, this building inside was is not clean. Less like say if they are trick, they make a case. the wires outside. It was not safe. Actually, it was not safe. That's why they caused the problem. Because the fire, when they bombed there, it just come everywhere. Because of sparking, it just sparked because it was like a body, not a breaks. That's why we caused the fire everywhere. So people was trying to run away. Some they jump each other. They start, just like that. Yes.
And how many years was your family members living in this building?
This bring my brother now. I think 3 years. We are going to 4 years. Let's say 4 years. Yes.
Are there any family members that have survived the fire that were living in there?
But now I don't know. That's why I take this book because some we still checking in the hospital, so we don't know. Right now I can lie. But the one I know is possible. My brother is a 6. The one I know I've seen in my life. 6 people we lost here, and the same one family.
And how many of your family members lived here before? Like how many of them were occupied and living in this?
There are so many, something like 100 something. Yeah, that's from Malawi, and we have so much. This building obviously is too much Malawian here. Yeah, we are Malawian and Tanzanians there. Yes.
Thank you so much, Hassan, and hopefully those that are still, alive, hopefully they do get well, and condolences for your loss. That was Hassan Mohammed, one of the family members of the victims. As you heard from him, 6 of his family members, an entire family. He said his brother, a wife, as well as 3 children and another brother of his, all passed on in this building. They perished, describing that this building is unsafe, and they believe that there was load shedding and someone had tried to do an illegal connections, which led to that spark that then ravished through that building. But I want to bring in Operation Dudula Zandile. Thank you so much for speaking to us. This has been, today's incident. We know it's not isolated. It's not something that happened, for the first time. But also the issue around illegal occupations of these buildings is not something new. Operation Dudula has been speaking out about it for quite some time. Over a while. What is your sentiments? Today, just standing here, following this devastation that's taken place.
Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad that you remember that Operation Dudula has been very vocal about the hijacked buildings. What's happening today here is one of the saddest story. People are losing their lives because our government is arrogant and could not, do anything about such buildings. These buildings are turned into informal settlements. You go into this building, you'll see the building has been partitioned into a lot of rooms, and there's no health hazard here, and there are kids in here, and it's just bad. We've been trying to talk about this since 2021, when we submitted our first memorandum to the mayor of Johannesburg, when we saw that this thing is getting worse. Actually, it's not even getting better, but they've turned a blind eye on us. And you'll find the NGOs like your series, your COMSAs, and your all of them that are dealing with foreign nationals. They actually are against us for prioritizing our own South Africans. We know as much as there are South Africans that have passed on in this building, but we know for a fact that there are illegal immigrants that are also victims in this scene here.
Throughout the day, through this conversation that we're having, there's the issue of criminality, there's the issue of migrants, illegal, plus those that are, here properly documented and undocumented, as well as South Africans. How do we balance the human rights of every citizen in South Africa alongside, the legalities of, and laws that are put into place? Because that seems to be one of the key issues coming up with the issues of Syria and some of the NGOs taking government to court when they do try to evict and secure these buildings.
Now, this tells you a lot about your series, because it means they don't love this country. And every time when you have a movement that's trying to fight all the lawlessness that's happening in this country, they will definitely be against you. So I would say that the likes of Series, they should take accountability in such, because when the likes of Operation Dudula tries to fight this is the act of criminality. You can't live in a hijacked building. You are an illegal immigrant. Yes, you have South Africans, I'm not disputing that, but you are an illegal immigrant. That's a criminality on its own. It's a lawlessness. How does one come into one country without proper documents? And we've been we've been crying about this thing for some time now, that if we don't hate our brothers and sisters from other countries, but what we are saying is that if they come to South Africa, they must have proper documents so that we can account. Some of these people, they might not be known who they are because they might not be documented. So who's going to be accountable for all of this? But we also blame our own government about this because they don't make sure that the laws of these countries are abided by.
Thank you so much. That was Operation Dudula Zandile speaking to us here. As we've heard throughout the day, various different accounts from eyewitnesses, family members, as well as government officials who we know are going to be doing a second briefing at 4:30, giving us a preliminary report on the death toll, as well as some of the now phases of recovery that will take into place. We know that the first phase, which was the first respondents and search and rescue, has now concluded, and the scene now will be handed over to the police for them to continue investigations, but also that arduous process of really identifying all those who have lost their lives, finding their families. That also begins, but also the rehousing of those that have now been left destitute also begins. So for me, that's it for now. Back to you in studio.
Thank you so much for that. Of course, Hasina is on the other side of that building, just speaking to various people in terms of what they've seen and what they have lost, essentially. Let's now cross to my other colleague, SABC News reporter Mbalenhle Mthethwa. Mbalenhle, thank you so much for your time. You're also on the ground. You arrived about an hour or so ago. Just talk to us about what is happening in your end.
Well, certainly, what we do understand is that an engineer is going to go inside or going to be doing a walkabout inside the building to determine the structural integrity of the building and to determine if these occupants or the occupants who were initially occupying the building can indeed go back. You will understand that they have been provided with buses and temporary placement. However, it seems as though they're reluctant to go to that particular place. There's a bus that is really just lying empty with people standing outside waiting to hear the outcome of that walkabout, which will then determine whether or not they are allowed to go back inside. But it seems as though the building, there's a high chance that the building will be declared unsafe given the intensity of the fire. We understand that the fire was so harsh and so strong that it actually some of the bricks have fallen off the building. So it seems as though the structural integrity of the building has been left rather compromised and making it difficult for the dwellers to then return to the building. But you will remember that in earlier crossings with my colleague Nozintombi Mia, there were conversations around the city of Johannesburg really blaming human rights lawyers for really accusing them of frustrating their efforts to try and enforce bylaws, as it is the duty and the responsibility of the city of Johannesburg. Now, I want to take you back to a time before the current administration took over in the city of Johannesburg, and at the time the MMC for community safety was David Tembe, and the MMC for economic development was Nkuli Mbuli. I hope I got the surname correctly. They had undergone an operation in the city of Johannesburg where they were in a process of enforcing bylaws, and when that happened, it seemed to have landed them in hot water with the very same human rights lawyers who took the matter to court, and they expressed their unhappiness with the fact that the city had opted to settle as opposed to challenge the matter, given that they felt that at the time they had done nothing wrong. I have indeed spoken to the former MMC for safety, David Tembe, who is an Action SA politician, and he's agreed that he was willing to give more detail on the role that these human rights lawyers have played in their efforts to try and remove people from unsafe buildings, as well as enforcing bylaws. There was also a time where he had also mentioned, during a time when they were releasing statistics, he had said that majority of they'd found stolen copper cables out on the side of the road on stalls from people who were posing as informal traders, but in fact hiding those cables underneath their stalls. Now, these were allegations that emerged quite some time back, and this was used as evidence to prove that there is a need for the city of Johannesburg to enforce these bylaws and to ensure that all the informal traders in the city of Johannesburg do indeed have a license to do so and are registered with the city of Johannesburg. But right now I'm actually joined by the South African Human Rights Commission here in Gauteng. We're going to be speaking to the provincial head here in Gauteng, and we're just going to talk about this issue that has been emerged, really. What do you make of the criticisms coming from the city of Johannesburg, really just accusing human rights lawyers of frustrating their efforts to remove people from unsafe buildings, and that, they've placed the blame squarely on these human rights lawyers? Your thoughts on this?
Firstly, thank you for having us. But first, as a Human Rights Commission, we just want to extend our condolences to those who've lost their loved ones. And all issue that you've just raised, the Human Rights Commission is an oversight body. That means that where there is a law regulating a process, our role is to make sure that a state entity complies with that law, similar to maybe some of the other human rights organizations, but we can't speak for them. Our role, and even in instances where the city has complied with the law, we've applauded the city. But what we have in South Africa is an overarching legislation, which is the PI Act, and that regulates how a person should be evicted from their home. And that law, even the Constitution, is clear that an eviction order needs to be sought. And a bylaw does not go above a constitution, and it is in our constitution. And if we think about why that law was put in place, we go back to apartheid, where people or a landowner would wake up in the morning and arbitrarily evict people, and that is the purpose of PI. And all we are saying as the Human Rights Commission is that when cities make bylaws, that they comply with national legislation. And this is the same legislation which is made by parties sitting in Parliament. And until such a time that they're saying that this law is no longer working, then they know what needs to be done in order for that law to be removed.
Well, what I hear you saying is that we should actually put the blame on all the politicians sitting in Parliament for not really amending the laws to assist municipalities to evict people in buildings that are deemed unsafe, because this building is believed to have had multiple shacks inside, which is obviously an occupational hazard in itself. What avenues do municipalities have, when they are faced with a situation such as that?
I disagree. It's not a blame game. Everybody's supposed to be working together to enforce the laws, right? To say whether the city is wrong or the Human Rights Commission is wrong, our mandate is also clear, and it's also protected in the Constitution. And in instances where our mandate has said or condemned the conduct of certain people, then people are like, the Human Rights Commission is working. But when we're saying in certain instances that the city, please, when you're making your bylaws, make sure that it is in line with case law and that it is in line with national legislation. We're not saying what the city wants to do is right or wrong, or that the intentions are wrong. But what we are saying is that comply with what the courts have said, comply with what national legislation is saying. And they've done well in some instances. But in this issue, in this particular issue, what we see is that there's a reluctance to say we are going to then use court orders. But there are many instances where the city has used a court order to evict people and saying, in this particular area, we want to develop this area, please move to place X. And PI says that there must be alternative accommodation that's available. But the city's own bylaws say that they're supposed to come and look and monitor the situation of their own buildings. So it's not about a blame game right now. So many people have lost their lives. It's about coming together and saying, what does the city want? what does national legislation provide for, and making sure that at the end of the day, people who are residents in this city get to have the best services that are available.
There you have it. Thank you so much for speaking to us. There you have it. That is a representative from the South African Human Rights Commission just speaking to us about, and just giving the response to the comments that were made earlier with regards to human rights lawyers being blamed for this incident, and the fact that the city of Johannesburg is saying that, is accusing them of frustrating their efforts to enforce bylaws as well as evict people from buildings that are deemed unsafe. For now, it is back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Balenhle Mtetwa, there for us. Of course, Hasina Gori earlier, both covering this tragedy that happened at the Johannesburg CBD, giving us all angles about the tragedy that has unfortunately taken 75 lives. Of course, this as the cause is yet to be determined. As Hasina earlier told us, we are expecting an update from the city of Johannesburg to be taking place a little bit later on. But earlier we reported that President Cyril Ramaphosa has expressed deep sadness at the loss of life in the Johannesburg CBD fire. Here is his message.